Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
The Watch Your Opera House in Watch Your, Iowa invites you to a night of golden oldies from the 50s to the 80s with jukebox hits from the band Hideaway Honey. This Central Iowa band performs top classic hits from such artists as Journey, Hart, Tanya Tucker, Shania Twain, The Judds, and many more. Tickets are just $10 and can be purchased at watchyyouroperahouse.org or get them at the door. It's the band Hideaway Honey this Saturday, September 28th at 7 p.m. at the Watch Your Opera House. Watch Pekin Panther football live right here this fall on Steve Shetler Media, Facebook, and YouTube with live announcers and an updated scoreboard, plus an area scoreboard to keep you updated on other schools of interest. It's Pekin Panther football live right here on Steve Shetler Media. Hello. We are on. We are doing Real Talk here on Steve Shetler Media, brought to us by New Life Community Church in Wellman. Pastor Aaron Fleming and myself. Aaron, what is up? It is a new Monday evening here on Steve Shetler Media.
Oh, it's a great day to be a Hawkeye, and it's a great day to be alive in Southeast Iowa.
It's always a good day to be a Hawkeye. Except when they lose.
Except for when they lose, and then it's sad. But anyway, it's wow, the fall weather. Have you been driving around Southeast Iowa at all?
The fall foliage.
Yeah,
I love that word.
It's just starting. The fields are starting to turn gold, and there's like some kind of yellow flower. I'm not a flower guy. There's two flowers that are just all over the place in the ditches. One is like a daisy or something, and the other I think is goldenrod. And the weather has been perfect, dry, warm in the day, but not sweaty, gross, warm.
Okay.
So I'm just I'm loving autumn in Southeast Iowa. And last week we were talking about the New Life Community Church of Wellman's 17-year anniversary. But another local institution also just celebrated 1 year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I believe we're just past 1 year of Steve Shetler Media.
Yeah. We celebrated here a few weeks ago. So, 1 year into it, and here we are. On a journey. What a ride it's been, huh? Yeah. And thank you for being a part of it.
Well, it's been good, and it fits into. I think some of our devoted listeners know I'm a little bit of a history nerd. Can I history nerd out on you for a little bit here?
Do it.
I'm going to put Steve Shetler Media in the perspective, in a global historical perspective. Now, if you know anything about the Roman Empire, you know that it collapsed because all these giant barbarian hordes came flooding across the borders, killing everybody and burning all the cities and everything, right?
Okay, sure.
Barbarians. That was our heavy metal music for the day. Wow.
How does this fit in? What about the barbarians?
Okay.
Am I a barbarian?
Okay. So in a way, but in a different way than what you think. I cannot remember the author's name, but I read a book a couple of years ago called Angels and Barbarians, or maybe it was Barbarians and Angels, written by an archaeologist. Who got to thinking, for his doctoral thesis or something, he came up with a thesis, which was that if Rome was destroyed by these hordes of barbarians flooding across the German borders, and destroying everything, then all across that border region where the Roman cities and forts were up in the north, all of those places should have layers of ash where these cities got burned down, and they should have mass graves with, I
think you were talking about that here recently.
Did I?
Yeah, you mentioned something about it. But anyway, go ahead. It's all right.
Okay. I love this topic, so we'll just do it again. Apologies to our listeners who remember every word that I said. But basically this guy, oh yeah, so you should have all these mass graves with people with axe wounds in their skulls and stuff like that. So the guy's an archaeologist, and he goes and he researches and he digs through all the, the archaeological remnants of these various cities across North Central Europe. And there's nothing there.
Okay.
There's nothing in the archaeological record to support this story.
Fake news.
Fake news. So here's the theory about how this happened. There was a lot of collapse in the Roman Empire, but basically, theoretically at least, I don't know if the book proves it, but it makes a pretty darn good case. People just got sick of sending all their tax money to Rome, where the emperors would use it for their giant armies to go fight wars in Persia or whatever, and to build giant temples and marble statues and all this kind of stuff. And people were just like, that stinks. And so it appears that the local people just invited barbarian warlords to move in.
Okay.
Like, hey, you guys are warlords, but you stink less than the Romans. So why don't you just come in? So here's the connection, right?
I stink less.
You stink less than Hollywood. That Steve Shetler Media stinks less than Fox and CNN.
That should be like my tagline. Steve Shetler Media. It stinks less.
Steve Shetler Media. Not as awful as Hollywood.
Not quite so smelly. Depending on the day.
So anyway, what the archaeological evidence shows that people just started investing, like instead of sending all that tax money off to Rome to build giant colosseums and giant temples, they just kept the money local and they put it into personal art, like really fancy jewelry and fine handcrafted stuff, and they just kept everything local. Okay. So what Steve Shetler Media is doing is it's giving people a local, homegrown, home-based media outlet option instead of tuning into Netflix or CBS or some radio station or something that doesn't give two whoops about Sigourney, Iowa. Back when Wellman had a newspaper, it was the Wellman Advance was around for 100+ years. But the newspaper's motto was, the Wellman Advance, the only newspaper in the world that gives two whoops about Wellman, Iowa. I would say the Kelowna News kind of gave one whoop about Wellman, but not two. So yeah, ABC News, even WHO, like WHO, that's a good statewide radio station, right? Classic radio station, carries the Hawkeyes, so that's good. But you know what WHO doesn't carry? They don't carry Sigourney Savage football. And they don't
Pekin football
or
too.
Pekin football. Yeah, Pekin's off to a hot start.
Yeah.
And we don't know yet because this is pre-recorded, but our Mid-Prairie Golden Hawks and Sigourney Savages will have played football by the time this comes out. And who won?
Yeah.
We don't know because it's in the future still.
I know in my heart who's going to win. You know in your heart who's going to win.
I know in my heart who's going to win. It is Mid-Prairie's homecoming game, so we can kind of hope that they win. But no, I'm just really fascinated by the history of the Roman Empire, and I'm fascinated by the history of Steve Shetler Media and kind of where that fits in. So that was an extended commercial for
thank you.
Your own program. You history-making barbarian, you.
Non-smelly barbarian.
Well, I didn't say non-smelly.
I mean, if you stay in the studio long enough with the door shut, it does tend to get a little smelly.
Yeah, we got these studio lights in here, and I'm wearing a jacket not because I need it, but because I needed a wardrobe change. Steve just kept on the same sweatshirt. All right. Well, that's fun. Speaking of history, I love the history parts in the Bible, so we're just going to dip into this cool story from the book of 1 Kings, chapter 18, and we got a terrible king. Dude's name is Ahab, and he's weak, and kind of slimy, and lets he marries this pagan princess from the kingdom of Sidon or something like that. And she comes in and she's like, I want to worship Baal. And Ahab's like, okay. And then she's like, I want to kill all the prophets of God. And Ahab's like, okay, honey, whatever you want. So he's not a great guy. But he gets confronted by this prophet named Elijah. And I'm going to read a little bit of the story here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Elijah challenges Ahab to a prophet duel. He says, Ahab, you got 450 prophets of Baal, and I'm the only prophet of God. So let's have a contest. And so they get together on the top of Mount Carmel, and they gather all the people and all these prophets. And Elijah, we're reading in verse 21 here, Elijah went before the people and said, how long will you waver between two opinions? And I think the Hebrew sense there is like this idea of like, where are my hands? Everything's reversed. There's two poles, and the people are just kind of wandering back and forth between these two positions. So how long will you waver or wander back and forth between these two opinions? If the Lord is God, then follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. And I just want to put this out there that most of our trouble in our spiritual lives and in our lives in general is because we have a really hard time committing, and we just haven't stopped wavering. So Elijah sets this contest up where he lets the 450 prophets of Baal go first. They build this big fancy altar. They put a bunch of wood on top. They cut up a bowl. They put the bowl on top of the wood, but they're not allowed to light the fire. They have to call on their god Baal to see if he'll answer with fire. And they dance around all morning, and they're shouting, and fire doesn't come down. I love this. At noon, Elijah began to taunt them. So he's a total troll. He's like, shout louder, he said. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought or busy. And I'm no Hebrew scholar. I keep talking about Hebrew words here, but busy is kind of like this idea of wandering off, quote unquote, wandering off, which means going to the bathroom.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe your God is deep in thought, or maybe he had to go to the bathroom. Like maybe he's in the potty, and so that's why he's not answering you with fire. Maybe he's traveling, or maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. So I just want to say to our audience, if you find yourself in self-destructive patterns, trying to please some god, trying to get some false god to pay attention to you, self-destructive patterns might be a clue that you're wandering back and forth, and you're not devoting yourself to serving the one true God. So that doesn't work. Now they're just hoarse and bleeding. So midday passed. They continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Then Elijah said to the people, come here to me. He has them pour a whole bunch of water over his altar, because he's up in the ante here. Soaks the wood, soaks the stone, soaks the sacrifice, soaks the ground around the altar. 3 times they pour water on his altar. And then we read this in verse 36. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, O Lord. Answer me, so these people will know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood and stones and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. And when all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, the Lord, he is God. So, boom. Cool story. I like it. Here's what I want to say. Some of us are wandering back and forth, and we can't understand why we're bleeding and our voice is hoarse and we're not making progress. Sometimes there are things in our lives that have to be taken to the altar and burnt by fire. There's a decision that has to be made. A stake that you got to drive in the ground as just like a signpost. This is where I'm taking my stand, and I'm gonna, whatever this impurity is, whatever this habit, this affliction, this whatever this thing is, I'm gonna put it on the altar, and I'm gonna ask God to burn it up. Because are you ever weak?
On occasion, yeah.
Every once in a while, we're weak. The truth is, we need the fire of God to burn that thing up. But he can't burn it up if you don't put it on the altar. There's no miracle until you bring it. God respects your will so much. He respects your choices so much. He will not come into your house and drag the sacrifice out, because then he doesn't have your heart. You got to bring that thing out and put it on the altar. So anyway, how do you do that? Well, nah.
What was that?
Nah. Maybe that was the sacrificial sheep.
Yeah.
Nah. That was me saying, I don't know. There's prayer. Sometimes you got to get your butt out of bed on Sunday morning and get to church and worship. And that's the place where it happens. There may be something in your house that you need to take outside and put on the burn pile and burn. I recently had a conversation with a young man who I told him, I think maybe you need to take your bongs out and put them in the driveway and cover them with gas and set them on fire.
Yep.
And he said, well, I got rid of most of my bongs. I'm like, you got to get rid of all of your bongs.
Yeah. You can't still hold on to it just a little bit.
It's that one bong that you're wavering back and forth between God and the bong. And you got to get rid of the bong without a plan of where you're going to go get another bong. So nobody said this is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said that you won't drive by the bong store. Is that a thing? I guess there's stores where you can buy bongs.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm not sure why it's not legal to smoke pot, but you can buy a bong. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yep.
Hey, there's states where pot is legal, and then you really got to decide. Am I going to avoid pot because God has called me to be holy, or am I going to avoid pot because I live in Iowa and it's not legal? Like, what do you want? Do you want to be holy, or do you just want to follow man-made laws? When you want to be holy, whether you live in Iowa or Illinois or Missouri, when you want to be holy, the fire of God will come and consume those things. But if you don't want to be holy, then the fire of God's not going to come.
Amen.
That's just being real.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been Real Talk, and it's sponsored by New Life Community Church, and it's on Steve Shetler Media, the history making, Roman Empire crushing, less stinky than Hollywood entertainment, Steve Shetler Media.
Way to bring it full circle on this show. That's nice.
Yeah, we kind of pulled that off. We better quit while we're ahead. So it's great to be with y'all. If you got questions or comments, or you want to get in touch with us, say hi in the comments, or you can message me, Aaron Fleming, on Facebook, or dig up my phone number, or check out New Life Community Church Facebook. And we do have a website too. It's kind of like we got some maintenance going on, so it's getting an upgrade, but you can find us there too. So,
all right. Well, Aaron, it's always a pleasure, always fun, always entertaining yet educational. Oh yes. All right, we're out of here. We'll see you next Monday.